So I'm going to hand you over now to Isaac to chat to us for a quarter of an hour or so, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion and some questions after that. So over to you, Isaac.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Dom, as well, for introducing me today. And also, I've been on the Positive Nature Networks before, and I find them really insightful. And I love being part of this movement, this collective of change of like-minded people who are looking to do more than just talk the talk, but also walk the walk. And that's what I'm about too. I've just shared my screen here, and so you can see I'm going to do a bit of a slide deck with you. Just kind of it helps me illustrate what I'm talking about. But I just want to say before I do start, I have a very big, deep admiration for everyone who's joined the network, everyone who's here today. Your interest in sustainability and also your focus in this area is crucial for keeping our world alive. So I just want to say thank you for all the work you are doing. And I also probably want to give a bit of prelude away. If there is something you're going to take away from this 15 minutes or so that I'm going to give you, it's to say that sustainability needs to be always seen as something fun and exciting to do. The more climate action that we can show that's fun and exciting, the more people that can get involved and maybe look at changing their lifestyles to be more focused around sustainability. So that's kind of the key message. There's a lot of doom and gloom out there. There's so much news about the problem, but I think to make a real sort of movement towards getting a lot of people on board, it's not about shouting about the negativity. It's about shouting about how great and fun this is. And I mean, this is quite a funny picture here. Actually, this is me cycling over water on a water bike, and this was a sustainability problem solution for me. I was doing an adventure a couple years ago, and I was looking at ways I could sustainably cross water as best as I could in the UK as part of an adventure. So cycling from Orkney to mainland Scotland, and then also from Cornwall to the Isles of Scilly. And the solution was using a water bike. So a company had made this a long time ago in the UK, and I got wind of it, and it was just lying there in a like a warehouse, and I said to them I'd love to use this as part of an adventure, so I just repurposed the use of it so that I could cross the water as sustainably as possible rather than using a ferry. But we'll get to that anyway in a sort of in some time. But I just have to admit to everybody, I've not always been a sustainability focused adventurer or leader or whatever you call it, activist. My journey to sustainability and being focused in this sort of space has never been something that was on top of my mind when I was a shy boy living indoors, glued to video games, completely disconnected with nature. But I'm now often telling people to get off the screens, get in touch with nature, do some climate action stuff like plastic pickup or tree. My life couldn't be so much more different than it was back then. But there is a reason why that happened, and there's been a lot of mindset shifts and journey that I'll explain in this 15 minutes with you. I often do ponder about sustainability leadership when I do speak to audiences like yourselves, because I think about this one question of there's 15, 16, 20, up to 20 of us in this room, but imagine if everyone thought of their life in a sustainable way, everyone became a sustainability leader. Imagine what the world would look like if everyone prioritized planet over profits and things like this, and just the scale of what things could look like. And I always think about that, and I have this like vision of this strange world which would be very different to what we live in now. But I like to open with that just to get people thinking about what could really be. And the thing about what could be really be is it's almost like what will have to happen, because for us to get through this unprecedented challenge that we're facing right now, we need everyone to come on board in changing the way we do things, to being authentic leaders of themselves, looking at their own impact on the planet. Because if we continue as business as usual, it's not looking good for us. and nature will always be there, but we might not be part of it. So I feel like we have to try and sort of create this mindset, sustainability mindset amongst everyone. And one of the best ways we can do that is making it fun, exciting, a bit of personal development and that side of things. Bit about me. This is the purpose. This is what I live for. This is, where I get like my wake up call in the morning is to empower other people to, protect themselves, the environment, and their mental health. All leadership starts with purpose and having a clear direction, and otherwise we're just chasing around in circles. So that's a bit about me there. I do have a confession. My sustainability journey, as I said, as a kid, sustainability wasn't even in the forefront of my mind. Neither was nature. But my actual biggest confession is I don't have the most respectful journey into sustainability. It's ultimately been a very selfish journey where I got into it because of a transformation of my mental health, which saved my life. My love for sustainability has come from that need of protecting the planet because it protects me. And 10 years ago, I nearly took my life, and I was very close to ending it. But what got me through it was a couple of people suggested that I should break up my day, get outdoors, and get in touch with nature. And this downward spiral just completely reversed itself when I was reconnecting with the outdoors. Long story short, I owed my life to this thing we called nature. But to be honest, we are all part of nature, and it was only when I started doing these walks out in the woods along rivers and things that I really decided to kind of think about nature in a different light, that I'm part of it and I need it. And I think that's another way we can bring in a lot of leadership into sustainability, because if everyone thinks that they are part of it, they're more likely to embed it within their lifestyle and the work that they do. We got to kind of get away from that separation. And my pursuit of getting into nature and the outdoors has taken me to all sorts of different areas, and I kind of discovered a love for outdoor adventures, and I've been hooked on them ever since. And this is just a list of all the bits and pieces I've done, like rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, unsupported, cycling across water, which I showed you before, and like tidal streams and things like that, bike packing the length of countries, and these are all very exciting adventures. But the one thing that has allowed me to do these adventures, to create these platforms of change, because each one of these adventures have been philanthropic endeavors. I've aimed to raise awareness of mental health or environmental conservation or environmental movement. And the only reason I've been able to do that is because I've had a very good solid base of well-being. And one of the things that I wanted to also bring into this talk was that the nature and outdoors is a resetter as well. Not only is it important that we do sustainability actions to protect it, but also we need to see it as it's something that we can use to our benefit too, for our mental health and to reset ourselves. Sometimes we can be really harsh on ourselves and work hours and hours on end trying to protect the world, sort of thing, and you're just doing so much and you burn yourself out. It's important to reconnect with nature and get that rejuvenation as well. Leadership is really important to have that sort of good base of well-being, because if you can't support yourself, you can't support anything else or any other initiatives like saving the planet and things like that. So it was probably my first understanding of sustainability leadership, was that building that sort of mental health resilience is core to that too. And since I've moved into all these different outdoor adventures, there was a couple that have really come to light where I had sort of the worst experiences of our human impact on wild and raw nature, and these shifted my mindsets. So this is an adventure, the Atlantic Ocean Row. That's the boat that I rowed in for 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. And this is sort of the things I've seen: ghost fishing nets, catching wildlife. I've seen plastic soup. So there's like these big algae blooms that go across the ocean. and a lot of the plastic gets caught up in them because they all follow the same current. And within that plastic soup, that's where I saw like a lot of wildlife getting damaged by it. And I've seen the shipping containers as well, which are not very good to see, where you see the plastic just leaving the shipping containers and slowly breaking down, making microplastics. And this is kind of where I started to realize that the impact we have is far reaching. I was in the middle of the ocean and wildlife was dying, thousands of miles from land. Our impact is very far reaching, and it made me question a lot about my own actions. And it made me sort of question about the type of person I want to be. Do I want to be a contributor to this problem, or do I want to sort of stop this problem from happening? And leadership started to become kind of the way I saw it. I saw it like, well, to be a contributor of the solution, I've got to be a solution maker. I've got to be a leader here. So it's about rising to the challenge and being able to make change in a difficult time. And I saw like this is leadership being made from this circumstance of the climate environmental crisis. So I refused to live in this world of eco-anxiety and worrying about the planet, and wanted to do something about it. And I quickly realized that I needed to look at my own actions and how I lived. And this is where it was quite embarrassing for me, because I was like, well, actually, I'm a massive contributor to the problem. There's a lot of things that I'm doing in my day-to-day life that is causing issues here too. So I rose to the challenge, and I thought of it as like a personal development thing, where I can learn to innovate my own life to be more sustainable, and also make it quite exciting, do things differently, a bit like how adventures are. So I mean, my journey into sustainability leadership has felt like an adventure. It's been quite exciting, and this is kind of what was going on back then. I had to ask some questions. What was my environmental impact? How can I reduce that? And I quickly understood that my current impact was pretty bad in a lot of different areas. And then you can see these sort of results here. And I believe that, like, if we are to install change and inspire people to be more sustainable, one of the key things that we can do is be sustainably, authentically, from a personal lifestyle perspective, as well as in the businesses that we run. And that's what I saw as my solution here, to be able to make change. So I ask myself often, what is a sustainability leader? And I believe it's someone who gets involved from a personal lifestyle perspective, not just a professional perspective. Someone who looks to reduce their footprint, or create long-term implications to their own actions, change the way they do things, so that they put the people and planet ahead. And some of those things for me have been like choosing different types of sponsorship for adventures, choosing to do my adventures local rather than travel far and wide to do them, accepting sometimes less money. I mean, I have been offered sponsorship from fossil fuel companies like BP, and I've had to turn them down. It's a lot of money, that's a lot of income, but will it actually help the wider good in adopting a more sustainable lifestyle? And I come to terms with it. It didn't. So I was willing to make some sacrifices, but also I didn't see them as sacrifices. I saw them more as, let's just do things differently. This is a chance to reinvent. And one of the ways I reinvented, the key ways I reinvented, was changing the way I do adventures. And this is the world's first eco adventure, I call it, because I hadn't seen someone or another adventurer do it in this way, where they took everything around sustainable lifestyle and applied it to their adventures. And what we do is we keep it as local as possible. We choose sustainable brand partners. We try to use sustainable modes of transportation wherever possible, cycling. We work with people with like minds like us, who want to make a positive impact on the planet, and they show it with action. So we audit the people we would work with. We decided to leave places better than we found, involved in volunteering activities. Like, so instead of cycling through the national park, what can you do as well as being in the national park? Can you clear it up, get rid of the plastic along the way, or the pollution along the way, or get involved in some hedgerow laying or tree planting, doing something more than just like tearing up the trails, and then inspiring others to live their own low impact adventures. So we decided to film this and use it as a a showcase of what can be possible for adventure, so that others can follow. And we've actually noticed a lot of people are doing it, which is quite cool. This was the adventure, and we went from Orkney to the Isles of Scilly, and it was an act of sustainability leadership. It was doing things differently. We could definitely have made this a lot easier for ourselves, of course, but we decided to go down the whole, let's innovate, let's make this as sustainable as possible. It might take a bit longer, but we'll do it anyway. We were as a team of 4 or 5 of us that cycled. I think it was 5 of us actually that cycled the whole length, but we had a wider team behind us, film crew and stakeholders, environmental projects, support crew, that sort of thing, who were all brought into the vision of, we want to showcase that we can do adventures differently. We can still have fun and do world records and things like that, but we don't need to do it at the expense of the planet. We can do it as sustainably as possible. And the whole film was awarded We Are Albert certification as a very sustainable film production. And we were able to showcase, what sustainable leaders were doing, these grassroots projects that we visited. We were able to, learn how they were being able to scale up their efforts of doing things differently. And it was really interesting. They had some incredible models where they were so transparent and accepting of other people and views and perspectives. They were not secretive about things. And that was really, really interesting, because I think that is where that is the key. There is perspectives in so many different areas of sustainability that sometimes it's hard to even know that that's even around if you're not willing to have that open dialogue, or if you're not willing to have that open culture. And I noticed that all of them had ecosystems in place that allowed that easy, effective collaboration with leaders in different unique specialisms. So they all recognize that they can't solve it on their own. These different grassroots projects that we visited, they all recognize that. They all recognize that they're not going to be the single answer. And as sustainability leaders, we know we're not the best at everything, but it's about connecting all the domains. And if everyone was an expert in sustainability within their own domain and shared best practice and learning with other domains, and then had that collaborative approach, the scale and the speed of action plans and strategies to actually implement into sustainable innovations or solutions is phenomenal. And that was where I was seeing sort of the biggest win. We made a film. It's been all over film festivals. It won awards. We took it to United Nations COP26 conference to show the leaders, in the sustainability leaders that we know, the government officials and things, what is being done from leaders from the ground up rather than from the ground down. And that sort of duo approach is probably what we envision is required. So that's why we brought the film and did a talk at the UN saying it's more than just top-down approach. It's also bottom-up. Individuals and local communities have a far more scalable effect for change than just policies from the top. So we were able to really bring in that message, and we made some great impact. Our film is now on Amazon Prime, because what we're trying to do is allow it to be as viewable as possible, but also raise awareness and funds for the national park. So we have like a couple pounds on it so that people can donate, and it will go towards the national parks, which is we raised £5,000 for during the expedition. And then after this eco adventure, everybody wanted to go on one when they saw this. So a friend of mine, Alex, and we set up Climate Explorers CIC, a community interest company, which is about creating eco adventures for corporations, but also individuals and undeserved communities, so that we can start scaling these local areas of climate action. There's so much going on in the UK everywhere, but they're not almost getting the attention they deserve. And there's a lot of people who are looking for ways they can get involved and take climate action. So what we're doing is connecting the two, connecting the projects, but also in a fun, exciting way, like an adventure, and getting people to do hands-on climate action. And it's been really, really good so far. So we started it this year and started doing sales of it, and now we've got quite a lot of corporations who are interested in doing it. And it's so enlightening to know that then instead of them going to the Amazon forest to do like water sampling of the Amazon River, they can now just do that here. But they don't have that sort of knowledge about citizen science that's going on in the UK. Well, maybe they do, but this eco adventure encourages that, so that they can make a local impact. This quote is one I think that is pretty sums up the talk. Inspiration does spark up an idea, but it's actually through the actions that we do we find the genius within, and the impacts that we take from the actions we do. The impacts that we make from the actions we do are the ways that we can showcase others. There is another trajectory, there is another route, and that empowers others to think about what they can do in other domains similar to mine. So mine's adventure. I did an eco adventure, it went quite well, but this can also be applied to any other sort of domain, and it's all about giving that guidance to help others find their own genius to make a difference. Next up then is obviously the London Marathon, which we alluded to at the beginning of the session today. I'm running the London Marathon for Earth Day, which is on the 22nd. So the marathon's on the 21st, and then that's on Sunday, and then the Earth Day is on the 22nd. And I'm in an upcycle tree costume. It felt like being a child building this costume again. But it's all to raise awareness around protecting the environment and getting hands-on with climate action. There is a record attempt as part of it, so hopefully that will boost the publicity. But if I don't get the record, whatever, it was about the cause anyway. The day after the marathon is really key, and that's when we're going to be doing another People Planet pint event that follows off the back of another Positive Nature Networks talk, which is live in person, and discussing the marathon run and other things, as well as a Q&A sort of panel discussion. So we'd love to see people there. But as part of that event, we've also got a running, plugging, picking up plastic and jogging event just at the beginning part of it on that day on Monday, the 22nd on Earth Day. So we can take action on Earth Day, but we should really be doing that every day anyway. But yeah, I just want to leave it that sort of note in your minds that sustainability, it can be fun, it can be innovative, it can feel like a bit of a drag sometimes where we're beating the drum and there's so much negativity and it feels like the issues are not going away. But the only way we're going to be able to bring other people on board to take action and try and be as sustainable as possible is it needs to look exciting and fun. If we're all doom and gloom and upset, and it's never going to attract anyone. So that's why I do adventures in this way, in a fun, exciting, engaging way, because it's one way we can engage the rest of society to think about how they can be sustainable, and it can be seen as a personal growth thing as well. So I'll conclude it there, and just want to say thank you for everyone in joining today on the talk, and love to hear if you've had any sort of ideas or epiphanies that have come from this talk, for things that you could do to encourage sustainability in your own world and network in your lifestyle. Great.
Thanks so much, Isaac. It's really really fun to hear about some of those adventures. Your eco adventure and the film on Amazon Prime. That's great and worth a watch if anyone wants to go there and find out more about that. Has anybody got any questions that they'd like to ask Isaac now, or any thoughts about anything that's come up so far? If you want to raise your hand if you've got a question. Do you want to just maybe take us off being spotlighted, Dom, just so we can see the group? So I was just wondering myself in terms of Helen, you have a hand up. Go on.
I would be interested to know if Isaac is aware of any citizen science database or a collective of some of these wonderful things that are going on, because they're very positive to hear about. But there's also so much that we could all learn from one another, as you've already said. But I don't know if there's a collective, or if somebody is, I mean, it might be a business idea, but somebody ought to have a collective of these small pockets of things that are going on, so that more of that information could be shared out to inspire other people, really.
Yeah, that I really like that question. So one of the things that came out of our journey when we were going to all these grassroots projects was we realized there's no one place where all of these things are. These activities, there is no one place currently. That there is a market gap for someone to get involved in bringing it all together. There's a lot of scalable citizen science projects that are very dedicated to themes, such as, you know, the Marine Conservation Society's got one around marine litter specifically. And then you've also got West Country Rivers Trust. They're doing citizen science projects around the waterways within Devon. And there's lots of these, I guess, citizen science programs specific to specific themes, but there's not a one-stop shop for everything. So, you know, in some ways there is quite a need for doing that. National parks, they try to do that. So National Parks UK have a number of citizen science projects that are partners of the national parks. So you can go on their website and then you will find actually that there's a number of different citizen science projects that happen within their parks across the UK, some of which are, you know, what's it called, sister projects. So something going on in Scotland is also as part of the same project as something in Devon, but they're in just two different locations. So there is a need of that. We actually, with Climate Explorers, we're actually mapping the trends of the different types of projects that we could get people to get involved in, such as businesses or local people, and hopefully we'll be able to, you know, answer that in a really cool, exciting, geographical way. That's kind of an ambition of ours later on. But as with all these sort of projects, they require data, and then with data it requires hosting and a platform to build. So there's a financial implication to it all, but probably why maybe it hasn't been done yet, because there hasn't been a commercial model for it, possibly.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
Any other questions from anyone else? I have one myself, but go on, Vanessa.
Well, first of all, just to say thanks, Isaac. Really enjoyed that, and you are an inspiration. It's lovely to see somebody of your generation so passionate and active, and taking this great initiative, because you really are a trailblazer. And that was great. Looking forward to meeting you next week. Yeah. So that's cool. For me, I'm a passionate storyteller, and I'm always excited by storytelling for social impact. And I've been trying to kind of figure out, how do I put together a project that can be viable around storytelling for social impact? I thought about how to run this as a training course, but I'm also thinking that it needs to have more structure and more substance to it. Could you share your thoughts on what I could do to make this concept come alive and become a channel for influencing change?
It's an interesting one, because the way you storytell to become, I guess, a sustainability leader can come in so many different forms. So my form has been from a reflection period, you know, of time, and realizing and seeing for myself the problems that have happened. And you can, it requires a lot of case study, I think, if you were to influence people's minds, but it's case studies that resonate with people. So, for instance, I just did a case study, right? Middle of the Atlantic Ocean, saw this turtle getting entangled with, you know, fishing nets in a plastic suit. It's not very resonating with the rest of the world. because not everyone has had that experience. So it's finding those case study experiences, I think, that is super key in storytelling, that can be very what's it called, resonating with the audience. So I think the more case studies that, it needs a lot of market research, but it's the more case studies that you can find that it would require sort of the general population to all resonate with. That's why I always go with walking in nature, good for mental well-being, because everyone gets that, and that's actually what happened with me. So it's finding those sort of threads.
Thank you, that's great.
I think that's the key.
And I think you're right. And what I'm particularly looking for, I think, is storytelling that resonates with the business community, so that we can really support business leaders who are driving change, who are wanting to be part of a positive program for business for good, but also those who aren't perhaps quite so on board, but they know that they have staff who are, and that those staff are passionate and they're kind of influencing from within.
So you're looking at from the commercial business point. Yeah, I think again, the case studies then need to be local to them. So I find with businesses, if you can find stuff that's like outside their door, and it's really easy and accessible for them to get involved and do, then they're more likely to do it.
Good point.
That is, yeah, it's just make it, the thing is with businesses is it's all, there's still this whole bottom line thing, right? It's all about presenting it in the easiest possible way for them. So
well, absolutely.
That's why we chose the eco-adventure model, the model of eco-adventure. We take businesses local from, with their office. It's like low effort for them, to the community around them. It's super, I mean, realistically, they should be able to do that themselves, but they have to go on these programs and stuff, right? It's just, business. Instead of going really far and wide to do the same impacts. I mean, they talk about a lot, businesses talk about community building, and there's a strange word about community building where, like, you donate to an African country to build a school to improve their community. That is community building, yes, but is it local to where you are in your area? So there's a thread of that as well that's kind of missing in that social impact side of things. A lot of people have a lot of social impact that's been made quite far away.
Do you think, Isaac, that's also that there is a group of younger employees, I shouldn't say younger because I think it's all ages, but a lot of employees that are now expecting to drive that change in the organizations they work in? And if people want to keep their staff and keep them motivated, they're going to have to change the way in which they're doing things. And I think more and more business leaders are beginning to see the impact of that if they don't.
Oh, yeah.
People just walk.
Eco-anxiety is huge, but it's biggest with the younger generations, and it's rising so rapidly. So I at Mind Charity, I'm a trustee there. Some of the biggest referrals and for the services come around eco-anxiety for younger people. It's massive, massive. And those that aren't working towards solving the climate problems are being seen as bad guys now. Even if you don't have a sustainability policy or even anything on your website, because kids, young 18-year-olds, they're going to go on your website. If they don't see anything to do with sustainability on there in any way, a lot of them are going to think, well, you don't have future in mind. I don't think I want to support you because I want to support my future. And they're coming from a selfish point of view, like I was. So I definitely feel that having these sort of programs or touch points with sustainability from a business perspective is essential for young people.
Yeah. Thank you.
You've touched on the idea there a few times in your talk and in your answers around storytelling being essential, but around that idea that in the end it's something close to self we need to approach this from the idea of how are people going to feel good about themselves in moving forward with sustainability practices.
Yeah.
So it's a selfish pursuit, as many other things are at a root. So that fun element becomes quite critical to getting engagement. How do you make the journey into becoming a more sustainable person something that looks and feels and is fun and engaging and better? Do you feel, coming at it from your angle, you're an adventurer, you're doing stuff that on a kind of on a level is just a fun thing to be doing. If you're a policy person or you're working in something that is inherently dry, how do you put the fun and the engagement into that? How do you kind of look at all of the different little minutiae of what are going on from a fun perspective, do you think?
Yeah, I think like with the type, there's professional and personal that comes into this, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you're in policy and you don't like writing policies, or you find policy writing dry, you shouldn't be in policy as a job. So if you find policy fun, then sustainability being put into the policy should only be seen as personal growth or innovation or something, right? It shouldn't be seen, if it's seen as a drag and stuff like this, then I mean, what are you in policy for?
So what you're effectively saying is we're not talking about fun, we're talking about finding joy in whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, that's key. That's super key as well. And I think if for a lot of people, they see the sustainability as a challenge, a hindrance, you're slowing things down. We maybe might make less bottom line, less money this year, but it's actually seeing it as a long-term win and seeing as this is innovation. This is an exciting time to get ahead of the curve. This is an exciting time to get ourselves in a position for 50 years from now. This is an exciting time to, do things differently. Sometimes business as usual, doing the same thing over and over again is quite boring. And this is an opportunity for rethinking and brainstorming and coming together and building community and having that sort of social interaction to solve a new problem. And that in itself is engaging. So like some of the worst times that I've heard people having poor mental health has been that stagnation of super in comfort zone. They're in comfort zone so much that they have a crisis within themselves. And I think businesses have that too. They have like their own crisis from a business perspective, because they're not innovating, they're not growing, they're not doing anything different. They're just in the same and same again. Sustainability offers this sort of like reset, refresh opportunity to redo things and re-engage and make things fun again.